This is the gripping story of a billionaire grandmother, a secret grandson, and a brave waitress who dares to reveal the truth that could tear an empire apart. Comment below where you're watching from. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Rain fell in soft sheets over the Hillcrest Cemetery, soaking the marble headstones and darkening the earth with grief. The air smelled of wet leaves and sorrow. Under a wide black umbrella stood Eleanor Whitmore, one of the most powerful businesswomen in the country, draped in a tailored black coat, heels sunk slightly into the damp grass. She looked down at the grave of her only son, Alexander Whitmore, who had died in a mysterious boating accident 3 years ago. Her eyes, usually icy and sharp, softened at the sight of his name etched into stone. Alexander James Whitmore, beloved son, 1986 to 2022. The words never got easier. Eleanor's driver waited at a respectful distance. But she was not alone. Just a few steps away, under a much smaller umbrella, stood a woman Eleanor didn't recognize. Next to her was a small boy, maybe 4 or 5 years old, holding a single white lily. They had no flowers, no bodyguards, no chauffeurs, just the quiet dignity of the grieving. Eleanor stared at them, her brows knitting. The woman was young, no older than 30, with warm brown skin and eyes filled with pain. Her hair was pulled back into a simple bun. Her clothes, though clean, were modest: jeans, a sweater, and worn-out boots. The child laid the lily on Alexander's grave. Something about that made Eleanor step forward. "Excuse me," she said, voice crisp but curious. "Do you know him?" The woman looked up. Her gaze held no fear, only resolve. "Yes," she said simply. "He was important to me." "And the boy?" The child clung to the woman's hand. He had Alexander's eyes. Eleanor's breath caught. "Who are you?" she demanded, a note of urgency creeping into her tone. "My name is Naomi Carter," the woman replied, "and this is my son. His name is Elijah." "Elijah?" Eleanor repeated, stunned. Her eyes flicked to the boy again. The resemblance was undeniable now. "How do you know my son?" Naomi's shoulders straightened. Alexander was Elijah's father. The words hit like a thunderclap. Eleanor stepped back. "That's impossible." Naomi pulled a folded photo from her coat pocket. In it, a smiling Alexander held a newborn, wrapped in a blue blanket. Eleanor's fingers trembled as she took it. I didn't know. He never said he was going to." Naomi interrupted gently, "but he never got the chance." The air grew colder. Or maybe it was Eleanor's sudden awareness that the past 3 years of mourning had been incomplete. Her son had left behind a legacy, and no one had told her. "I want to talk," Eleanor said. "Come with me." Naomi's grip on Elijah's hand tightened. "No, not here, not like this." Eleanor blinked. She wasn't used to being refused. "Then where?" Naomi looked her in the eye. "Somewhere neutral. I'll decide." Later that evening, Eleanor sat in her penthouse overlooking the city, a glass of brandy untouched on the table. Her mind was racing. She had ordered a background check on Naomi Carter the moment she stepped into her car. By morning, the report was in. Naomi, waitress, single mother, no criminal record, college dropout, lived modestly in a rented apartment. But there was one thing that stood out. There was no hospital record of Elijah's birth. No father listed on the certificate. No prenatal records tied to Alexander. Everything seemed clean, too clean. Eleanor paced her marble floors. If Naomi was telling the truth, she had a grandson, an heir. But if she was lying, she dialed her assistant. "Arrange a meeting. I want to speak to her again. This time, at my office." Naomi entered Whitmore Tower 2 days later wearing the same quiet dignity as before. She carried herself without fear, though the opulence of the surroundings contrasted sharply with her simplicity. Elijah was not with her. Eleanor stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows. Back to the door. "You came." "I did. I ran your background," Eleanor said bluntly. "There's no birth record for your son." "I used a midwife," Naomi replied. "We wanted privacy." Alexander was terrified of what his mother would do if she found out. Eleanor turned, eyes narrowing. "Are you saying I would have rejected my grandson? Did you know your son was engaged to someone else?" Naomi asked. "Someone from your circle?" Eleanor's silence answered for her. Naomi stepped forward. "He didn't love her. He loved me." We met when he was trying to escape all this. The money, the control, you. Eleanor's face tightened. Naomi continued, her voice unwavering. He was going to tell you after the wedding was called off. He wanted to introduce you to Elijah. But then, the accident happened. You expect me to believe this without proof? I came here with nothing. Naomi said, no lawyers, no claims. I just wanted Elijah to know where he came from. But make no mistake, he has a family, he is loved, and he will never be anyone's bargaining chip. Eleanor moved toward her desk and slid open a drawer. From it, she took out a checkbook and began writing. Naomi's eyes followed the pen. What are you doing? I'm offering you a better life. One that doesn't involve waiting tables and struggling. Take this. I'm not for sale, Naomi said sharply, and neither is Elijah. Eleanor froze. Naomi walked to the desk and placed a small envelope on it. Inside is a DNA test. Taken voluntarily. You'll see he's Alexander's son. I did it because I thought you deserved to know the truth. But if this is how you respond to that truth, then I think it's better we don't speak again. With that, Naomi turned and walked out. Eleanor stood frozen, check half written in her hand. For the first time in years, she wasn't sure what to do next. The city skyline shimmered behind the glass walls of Whitmore Tower. But Eleanor Whitmore wasn't seeing it. She was seated alone in her executive suite. The DNA test envelope Naomi Carter had left still unopened on the desk before her. She'd spent the night replaying every word of their conversation, Naomi's steady voice, her unwavering refusal to be bought, the pain in her eyes when she spoke of Alexander. Eleanor finally opened the envelope. The result was undeniable. Elijah Carter, 99.99% probability, biological grandson of Eleanor Whitmore. The silence in the room deepened. There it was, the heir, a bloodline she had thought ended, alive and well and living far from the marble halls of wealth she had built for her family. Eleanor pressed the intercom button. Carla, get legal on the line. I want to know what it would take to secure guardianship of a minor child. Naomi's apartment was small but warm, tucked inside a cozy walk-up in the city's West End. Elijah sat on the floor drawing pictures of his dad, stick figures on boats and clouds above them. Naomi watched him from the kitchen, her heart tightening. He didn't know how close his life had come to changing forever. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Hello? A man's voice replied. Ms. Carter, I'm calling on behalf of Eleanor Whitmore. She would like to propose a meeting. I've already said everything I need to say. It concerns Elijah's future. There's a financial arrangement she's prepared to offer. Naomi hung up. 2 days later, a thick envelope arrived by courier. Inside, a formal custody petition, a proposed trust for Elijah, a non-disclosure agreement, and a cover letter stating that Eleanor was deeply concerned for the child's well-being and willing to take full legal and financial responsibility for his upbringing. Naomi's hands shook. She sat on her couch for hours staring at the paperwork. This wasn't a request, it was a warning shot. Eleanor wasn't just a grieving grandmother anymore. She was activating her empire. But Naomi had spent years protecting Elijah from a world that would chew him up. She wasn't going to stop now. By the next morning, Naomi was seated in the office of a legal powerhouse, Hendricks & Lowe, specialists in family and civil rights law. Across the table sat a sharply dressed attorney named Maya Hendricks. She's Eleanor Whitmore, Maya said calmly, flipping through the petition. But she can't just take your son. She's powerful, Naomi said. She can buy anything she wants. Maybe so, Maya replied, but she doesn't know who you are yet. Naomi frowned. What do you mean? You're the mother of a Whitmore heir. You're also a legal adult who's raised a healthy, well-adjusted child for 4 years with no help. That matters. The court won't just hand him over because she waves a checkbook. I didn't come here for a fight, Naomi whispered. Maya looked up, but one's already started. Back at Whitmore Tower, Eleanor's legal team gathered in her conference room. Her counsel responded. Her attorney said, they're refusing all offers. They're ready to challenge in family court. Publicly, Eleanor's lips thinned. I don't want a war. But you're pushing for custody. I'm protecting my legacy. Eleanor snapped. My son's legacy. That child is the only thing left of Alexander. I will not let him grow up with strangers. Her attorney hesitated. Naomi Carter is hardly a stranger. Alexander's connection with her was significant. Eleanor's eyes flashed. She was never meant to be part of our family. Be that as it may, the court may sympathize with her, especially if this goes public. The optics of a billionaire trying to take a child from a single mother. Then we keep it private. And we win. Later that night, Eleanor sat in her private library staring at an old photo of Alexander, the last birthday they'd spent together. He was smiling, carefree, standing on the deck of the family yacht. She hadn't known then that he was in love with someone she'd never met. That he'd had a child, a life outside the empire. How had she missed it? She opened her laptop and began typing. The email went to a private investigator. The instructions were clear. Find everything there is to know about Naomi Carter. Every detail, every weakness. Meanwhile, Naomi walked Elijah to preschool. He skipped beside her, backpack bouncing. Mommy, do rich people have bigger playgrounds? Naomi smiled faintly. Maybe, but that doesn't mean they're more fun. Is Grandma Eleanor rich? Naomi paused. Yes, very. Can I see her again? Naomi knelt down and looked into his curious eyes. Maybe, someday, but not now. Why not? Naomi smoothed his hair. Because sometimes, grown-ups have to figure things out first, before kids get pulled into something messy. Elijah nodded solemnly. Okay. That night, Naomi stood at the kitchen counter. Her laptop opened to a private document folder labeled Alexander. Inside were pictures, voicemails, and old text messages. Every memory she'd saved, every shred of proof that her relationship with Alexander had been real. Not a fling, not a fantasy, but something deep and complicated and unfinished. She opened a video. Alexander, laughing on a beach, holding Elijah as a baby. Say hi to your mommy. He teased the infant. Tell her she's got the prettiest smile in the world. Naomi wiped her cheek as the screen faded to black. She clicked on another file, this one an audio message. One she'd never shared. Alexander's voice crackled through. If anything happens to me, tell my mom I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave things this way. I couldn't live the life she wanted. But I love her, and I love you. Take care of Elijah. Tell him I'm proud. Naomi sat back, trembling. She knew now, this wouldn't end with lawyers. Not with money, not with threats. The truth had to come out. All of it, even if it destroyed the Whitmore name forever. A steady drizzle tapped against the penthouse windows as Eleanor Whitmore sat in her private study. The fire behind her casting flickering shadows across shelves of leather-bound books. In her hands was the private investigator's report. It was thick. She flipped through the pages, each line giving her more insight into Naomi Carter's life than she'd ever thought she'd need. Childhood in foster care, top student in high school, briefly attended a state university before dropping out due to financial hardship. Waitress jobs, no history of crime, no red flags, no scandal, no leverage. Eleanor slammed the folder shut. This wasn't just a single mother trying to protect her son. This was a woman who had clawed her way through life. The kind of woman Eleanor both respected and feared. Across town, Naomi sat in a quiet cafe with Maya Hendricks, her attorney. They spoke in hushed tones. Documents spread between them. She's not backing down, Maya said. We've been served with a revised custody filing. She's requesting temporary visitation rights. Emergency hearing is in 3 days. Naomi's stomach dropped. She's going to say I'm unfit, isn't she? Maya nodded. She's not dumb enough to say that directly. But she'll imply Elijah needs more than you can give, better education. Security, healthcare. Naomi clenched her jaw. This is exactly why Alexander kept us a secret. He knew what his mother was capable of. Maya leaned forward. Then maybe it's time we fight back with the one thing she can't control. The truth. 3 days later, the courtroom was packed. The polished wood, the stone columns, everything reeked of formality and power. Eleanor arrived in a sleek black suit, flanked by her legal team. Naomi, wearing a plain navy dress and holding a thick folder of documents, entered quietly with Maya. Elijah wasn't there. Neither side had wanted him in the courtroom. He was too young to understand the war being waged in his name. The judge, a gray-haired woman with sharp eyes, looked at both parties over the rim of her glasses. I understand we are here to discuss preliminary custody arrangements concerning the minor. Elijah Carter, Ms. Whitmore, you are seeking visitation as biological grandmother. Ms. Carter, you are contesting. Eleanor's attorney rose. Your Honor, Ms. Whitmore is deeply concerned for the welfare of her grandson. She recently learned of his existence following the tragic death of her son, Alexander. She wishes only to build a relationship with the child and offer him the stability and opportunity he deserves. Naomi stood. Your Honor, I have never hidden Elijah. I raised him alone because Alexander wanted it that way. He feared his family would try to control our lives. Everything I've done has been to protect my son, not keep him away from love, but from manipulation. Do you deny Ms. Whitmore's biological relation to your son? The judge asked. No, Naomi said calmly. In fact, I gave her a DNA test to confirm it. Then what is your objection to visitation? Naomi paused. Because this is not about visitation. It's about control. Ms. Whitmore doesn't want to visit Elijah. She wants to claim him. Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The judge narrowed her eyes. Do you have evidence of this intention? Naomi lifted a folder. I have the original documents Ms. Whitmore sent me, including a check with no amount filled in, a non-disclosure agreement, and an initial custody agreement I never asked for. She handed them to the clerk, who passed them to the judge. Eleanor's attorney shifted uncomfortably. Eleanor herself remained stone-faced, though her hand tightened around the armrest of her chair. I also have a recorded message from Alexander Whitmore, made just weeks before his death. That caused a stir. Eleanor's eyes snapped to Naomi. What? Naomi opened her phone and played the audio aloud. Alexander's voice filled the room. If anything happens to me, tell my mom I'm sorry. I didn't mean to leave things this way. I couldn't live the life she wanted. But I love her, and I love you. Take care of Elijah. Tell him I'm proud. Silence fell over the courtroom like a blanket. The judge leaned forward. This changes context. Maya stood beside Naomi. Your Honor, we are not saying Ms. Whitmore cannot be in Elijah's life. But this cannot be a hostile takeover disguised as compassion. Naomi Carter is Elijah's mother. She has cared for him, loved him, and never asked for a dime from anyone. The judge finally spoke. This court recognizes the complex family history involved. Given the circumstances, I will not grant temporary custody or visitation at this time. Mediation will be required before any future arrangement is considered. Both parties are to avoid direct contact until that process begins. Eleanor's mouth parted in disbelief. Court was adjourned. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed, but Naomi kept her head down. Maya blocked most of the questions as they slipped into a waiting car. Inside, Naomi sat in silence. You did well, Maya said gently. I didn't win, Naomi replied. You didn't lose. That night, Eleanor poured herself a glass of wine and stood alone in her son's old bedroom, untouched since the day he died. His trophies, posters, even an old guitar still hung on the wall. She sat on his bed, the weight of the day pressing down like lead. The voice message echoed in her mind. I couldn't live the life she wanted. She'd built an empire from nothing. She'd ruled it like a queen. But had she been so blinded by power that she lost the only thing that truly mattered? Her grandson, the last piece of her son, was slipping away. And for the first time, Eleanor Whitmore didn't know what to do next. Naomi Carter stood in front of the full-length mirror in her apartment, brushing Elijah's hair with careful hands. He was fidgeting, his bow tie slightly crooked. Do I have to wear this? Elijah complained, pulling at the collar. Naomi chuckled softly. It's just for a few hours. Baby, remember what we talked about? Meeting someone important? He nodded. Grandma Eleanor. Naomi paused. The words still didn't feel natural in her mouth. But she couldn't deny Elijah's curiosity anymore, not after the court-ordered mediation sessions had begun. Eleanor had finally agreed to meet in a neutral space with Naomi present. No lawyers, just the three of them. She's your family, Naomi said gently, but you don't have to talk about anything you don't want to. You're in charge, okay? Elijah nodded again, more confidently this time. At the mediation center downtown, Eleanor Whitmore arrived early. She had dressed more casually than usual, no pearls, no sharp blazer, just a soft gray sweater and slacks. Still, She looked every inch the woman who ran a billion-dollar empire. She paced the room slowly, rehearsing the words in her head. Then the door opened. Naomi walked in with Elijah holding her hand. For a moment, all three stood in silence, just staring. Elijah was the first to speak. "Hi," he said, shyly. "I remember you." Eleanor knelt down, eye level with him. "Hi, Elijah. I remember you too." Naomi sat on the edge of the couch, watching like a hawk, but said nothing. She had promised herself she would let this play out naturally, for Elijah's sake. "Do you have toys?" Elijah asked, looking around the room. Eleanor smiled, surprised. "Not here, but I have some at my house. Trains and blocks. I wasn't sure if you'd like them." "I like trains," he beamed. Naomi's guard didn't drop, but a breath escaped her lips. Eleanor looked at her. "Thank you for bringing him." "I didn't do it for you," Naomi replied quietly. "I did it because he deserves answers, not silence." Eleanor gave a small nod. "Then let's give him those answers. Together." Later that week, Naomi met Maya Hendricks for coffee at their usual spot. She updated her on the visit, and the surprising calm that followed. Eleanor didn't push, she actually listened. "I think Elijah liked her." Maya sipped her drink. "That's a good thing, but don't mistake civility for surrender." Her team just filed a request to have Elijah's surname legally changed to Whitmore. Naomi blinked. "What?" "She says it's symbolic of family unity." Naomi's hands curled around her coffee cup. "He already has a name. A life. She doesn't get to rewrite his story just because she ignored it for 5 years." Maya leaned forward. "Naomi, I think she's testing you. Seeing how far she can go before you push back again." Naomi's jaw tensed. She won't like what she finds if she keeps pushing. Back at Whitmore Tower, Eleanor reviewed a series of public relations drafts. Her assistant stood nervously by the door. "This one focuses on family legacy." The assistant explained. "We frame Elijah as the continuation of your late son's humanitarian vision." Very tasteful, soft messaging. Eleanor closed the file. "I don't want a press release." "But the board doesn't raise my grandson." She dismissed the assistant and stood by the window, watching the city lights come alive below. Her publicist had begged her to make Elijah's story part of a strategic narrative. A grieving grandmother reconnects with her only grandchild. What better way to humanize a titan of industry? But Eleanor couldn't stomach it. Not yet, maybe not ever. This wasn't a strategy. This was penance. Days passed, and another supervised visit was arranged, this time at a city park. Eleanor arrived with a picnic basket. Dressed in jeans for the first time in decades, Elijah ran toward her before Naomi even parked the car. "Did you bring the peanut butter crackers?" he called out. "I brought 3 kinds." Eleanor smiled. Naomi walked slowly behind him, always watching, always ready. They sat on a picnic blanket under a tree, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows. For a few moments, it felt almost normal. Elijah played, telling Eleanor all about his favorite cartoon and how he wanted to be an astronaut. Then he turned to her suddenly and asked, "Why didn't you come see me when I was a baby?" Naomi froze. Eleanor blinked, caught off guard. "I didn't know about you, sweetheart. If I had, I would have come right away." "Did my daddy tell you?" "No, he didn't." "I wish he had." Elijah turned to Naomi. "Did you tell her?" Naomi's throat tightened. "Not at first. I was scared." Eleanor looked between them. "But we know each other now, and I hope we can keep learning together." Elijah nodded, as if satisfied, and returned to his crackers. Naomi and Eleanor locked eyes over his head. And for the first time, the tension between them was quiet, not gone, but quiet. Later that night, Naomi was washing dishes when a knock sounded at the door. She opened it to find Eleanor standing there, alone. "I'm not here to take him," she said before Naomi could speak. "I'm here to ask for something else." Naomi stepped aside reluctantly, allowing her in. Eleanor took a slow breath. "I want to fund a college account for Elijah. No strings, just a future, if he wants it." Naomi stared at her. "And the last name?" Eleanor looked down. "That was a mistake. I pushed too hard." Silence hung between them. Naomi finally spoke. "I don't want his world decided by boardrooms and trust funds. I want him to grow up kind, curious, with a mother who loves him more than money." Eleanor nodded slowly. And a grandmother who's learning what that means. The next day, Eleanor sat alone in Alexander's room again, holding an old photo. Her voice was barely a whisper. I'm trying, son. I don't know if it's enough. But I'm trying. The autumn air had grown crisp. Golden leaves fluttering down the sidewalk outside Naomi Carter's apartment. Inside, Elijah was at the dining table with colored pencils scattered in front of him. He was sketching a rocket ship, red and silver, with EC-1 written along the side in bold letters. What's EC-1? Naomi asked, gently tousling his hair. Elijah Carter 1, he said proudly. My first space mission. Naomi smiled. It's perfect. As he leaned over his drawing, Naomi's phone buzzed on the counter. She picked it up. It was from Eleanor. Mediation complete. My lawyer will draft the final statement of understanding. Thank you for allowing me to be part of his life. Truly. Naomi stood still for a moment, letting the weight of those words settle. That weekend, Eleanor Whitmore sat alone in her office atop Whitmore Tower, looking out at the skyline. Her assistant knocked softly before entering. Ms. Whitmore, the foundation board is ready for you. I won't be attending, Eleanor replied, closing her laptop. The assistant looked confused. But you were scheduled to. I said I won't be attending, Eleanor repeated, her voice calm. She picked up her coat and headed for the elevator. At the Community Science Center, Naomi was guiding Elijah toward the entrance. They were there for the kids' space workshop, rockets, circuits, and interactive exhibits. Naomi glanced around. Eleanor was already there, waiting at the corner of the lobby. This time, she wasn't alone. She held a sleek metal case. Elijah, I have something for you, she said softly as he ran up to her. Inside the case was a custom-built model rocket, painted to match Elijah's drawing exactly. EC-1 shimmered along the side in silver paint. His eyes lit up. Can we launch it? He asked eagerly. We'll need permission from Mission Control, Eleanor replied, glancing at Naomi. Naomi gave a small nod. Mission Control approves. The three of them walked through the center together. A new kind of formation, still fragile, still learning, but undeniably moving forward. Weeks later, on the first chilly morning of winter, Naomi stood on the steps of Elijah's new school, one she had chosen. Not Eleanor. Small classrooms, passionate teachers, close to home. It wasn't the elite academy Eleanor had recommended, but it was the right choice for Elijah. As she watched him walk in, holding his backpack with the EC-1 rocket keychain swinging from the zipper, a warmth settled in her chest. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was choosing the life they both deserved. That afternoon, Eleanor invited Naomi to lunch at a quiet garden cafe. The table was already set with chamomile tea, and for once, no assistants hovered nearby. I finalized the fund, Eleanor said, in Elijah's name. Fully independent. You control it. Naomi looked up, surprised. I thought you'd want oversight. I did, Eleanor admitted, but I've realized control isn't the same as care. Naomi sipped her tea. You've changed. Maybe, or maybe I've just started remembering who I used to be, before the world taught me to put power above people. Naomi didn't answer right away. I don't think we'll ever see things the same way. I don't expect us to, Eleanor said, but I hope we can stand on the same side, for him. Naomi nodded. For Elijah. That evening, Elijah sat curled up between them on the couch in Naomi's apartment, watching a cartoon about time-traveling astronauts. Eleanor laughed softly at a silly line, and Naomi glanced at her with quiet amusement. They weren't friends. They weren't enemies. They were something else now, family. Perhaps, in the most complicated and unexpected way. Elijah turned to Eleanor. Do you think I can really go to space one day? Eleanor smiled, brushing his hair gently. With your mother's heart and your father's spirit? I think you'll change the world. Naomi looked at her son. His eyes filled with wonder, and whispered, You already are. 6 months later, the courtroom was quiet, far different from the tension-filled hearings of the past. Today, there was no conflict, only closure. Naomi stood before the judge, Eleanor by her side. The judge reviewed the signed agreement. This document confirms that Naomi Carter retains full legal and physical custody of Elijah Carter. Eleanor Whitmore has agreed to visitation rights under the terms mutually established. No future claims on guardianship or naming rights will be pursued. Is this correct? Both women nodded. Then I commend you, the judge said, for prioritizing the child's well-being over personal grievances. Few managed to reach this point with grace. Outside, reporters waited, but neither woman stopped to speak. Eleanor turned to Naomi as they walked down the steps. He's lucky to have you. Naomi looked at her, surprised by the softness in her voice. We're both lucky. He brought out the best in both of us. Back at the science center, Elijah's class gathered for their first group rocket launch. Naomi stood at the back with a camera in hand. Eleanor adjusted her scarf, the cold wind brushing her hair back. 5, 4, 3. Elijah pressed the button. The EC-1 soared into the sky, higher than anyone expected, trailing silver smoke against the pale blue horizon. Naomi wiped a tear from her eye. Eleanor didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Because love, in the end, wasn't about ownership. It was about letting go and cheering from the ground as they reached for the stars. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe to Tellinight. At Tellinight, stories remind us that healing begins with hope, and even the gentlest kindness can rewrite a destiny. Don't forget to tap the bell so you never miss a story that could brighten your day or transform your perspective. Until our next story, keep your heart open and your spirit brave.